I am Jim Rogers. I am delighted to be here, but before we start, I very much want to thank TMT Post for putting this on and for inviting me. I'm very pleased to be at the 2021 T-Edge Experience Conference. I hope there will be more conferences like this in the future. And before I start, I would like to make a comment about TMT Post. You know, this is a company that didn't exist 15 years ago, and that's the sort of thing which is happening in China these days. I first went to China in 1984, and it is astonishing. China has been the most successful country in the past 40 years, and I expect that to continue for a long time to go. And TMT Post is just one of many companies in China as the Chinese unleash their brains and their entrepreneurship and their drive. So thank you, TMT Post, and thank everybody. So now let's talk about what's going on in the world. A few years ago, my wife, Paige Parker, and I spent 3 years driving around the world, 245,000 kilometers, and as you can, and 116 countries, and as you can see, we got into the Guinness Book of World Records. I'm the first hedge fund manager to drive around the world, so I guess for me, it was fairly easy to do. So we started our trip in Iceland, as you can see, then we went through Europe, Turkey, China, Korea, Japan, back into Siberia, Mongolia, all across Russia, and down around Europe, 32 countries in Africa, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, Australia, New Zealand, to the bottom of South America, up through Central America, up to Alaska, then back down into the United States, across the southern part of the US, and back to New York. It was a long time, so I want to show you. I cannot show you 3 years of driving around the world in 2 minutes, but I'm going to show you a 2-minute video so you get some idea of what it's like. We started in Iceland, off to the Great Wall. We did get married on the trip. Here we are cutting our cake. This was our honeymoon. One of many camels we ran into on the road. We went through several war zones. These guys were not friendly at first, but if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you will see a familiar face. One of many markets we visited. This is one of many bad roads. A sad time. We went to an AIDS orphanage in South Africa. We went to see King Tut in Egypt. Stopped at schools whenever we could because I'm very keen on education. Everybody always wanted to have their pictures made. Myanmar, one of many roadside stands where we ate and drank. Iguazu Falls in South America. This is the bane of my existence: bureaucracy, red tape, regulations. This, on the other hand, is the black market. This is a much higher class of people. And when we got back to the US, we kept going. We headed up to Alaska in the dead of winter. And when we got back to New York, our first stop was the World Trade Center. That had blown up while we were gone. You know, it was 3 years on the road, 245,000 kilometers, 116 countries. So when we got home, we decided we would stop and rest for a while. Well, one result of resting for a while is we now have a baby girl. I had never had a child before in my life. I was very much against children. I thought children were a terrible waste of time, money, energy. I felt so sorry for my friends who had children. Well, I want you to know I was completely wrong. Children are fabulous. Everybody should have children. It's a fabulous, fabulous experience. So if you haven't done it, take a day off or go home for lunch one day, because it is a very good experience. It'll be good for you. It'll be good for China. China needs more babies. The world needs more babies. I took my own advice one day. We went home for lunch, and as you can see, now we have two. So I am very much in favor of children, and I hope that all of you will do it as soon as you can. Here they are again, a little bit older, on CCTV, and I will give you an example. One of the things that I was telling people all in America for many years is you should teach your children and grandchildren Mandarin, because China is going to be the most important country in the 21st century. I even moved to Asia because of China, because I wanted my children to know Asia and I wanted them to speak Mandarin.
大家好，我是快乐罗杰斯，非常高兴在2021年 TEDx 全球创新大会上跟大家见面。泰媒体也邀请了我的爸爸杰姆罗杰斯来给大家做演讲，我知道他非常期待，感谢泰媒体。我的爸爸一直都非常喜欢中国，所以我和妹妹从小一直都会听他讲起在中国的所见所闻。我觉得他让我和妹妹说中文，学习中文真的是一个非常明智的决定，而且对我来说是个非常大的优势。爸爸一直都会说我和妹妹是他最好的投资。我真的希望可以尽快回到中国，认识大家，跟大家见面，也希望大会圆满成功，希望爸爸的演讲非常成功。
Many countries in the world have been successful in the past. Rome was successful once. Egypt was successful once. Great Britain was great once. But China has been great 3 or 4 times in world history. China is the only country that has had total collapse, but then rose to the top again. No other country has been able to do that 3 or 4 times except China. And the 19th century was the century of the UK. The 20th century was the century of the US. The 21st century is going to be the century of China. A lot of people don't like that, but it doesn't matter whether we like it or not. China's on the rise again, and it's going to be a very great year, a great century for China. So, as you can see, I am quite keen on the future of China, quite keen on the future of Asia, and the 21st century will be the century of Asia and the century of China because of that. And there are many people in the world who don't like it, I repeat, but it really doesn't matter. You know, history is full of changes. One of the great changes in the 21st century is the rise of China again. Now, a few years ago, we had a big economic problem in the world. In 2008, economies collapsed. China was one of the things that saved the world in 2008. China had a lot of money saved up for a rainy day. They had very little debt. And so when the world collapsed, China started spending this money it had saved and helped save the world. Not many people could do it, and now nobody can do it because even China has a lot of debt. So what the US did was cut interest rates, printed a huge amount of money, and as you know, interest rates went to almost zero, the lowest they've ever been in recorded history, because of the central banks, not just in the US, but around the world. Everybody started printing a lot of money going forward. This also has led to strength in the US dollar. So China helped save the world in 2008, 2009 by spending some of the money it had saved up for a rainy day. Other governments, the US for instance, cut interest rates as much as they could. They printed huge amounts of money. Interest rates are now the lowest they have ever been in the history of the world. We've never seen anything like this before. At the same time, because of what was going on, the United States dollar was very strong. People were worried about the future, and when people are worried, they look for a safe haven. People think the US dollar is a safe haven, so many people switch to the US dollar, and it's been very strong. Now, you all know what's going on in China in this period of time. The Chinese stock market had a couple of big booms. It's been strong again in the last few years. We will talk more about the Chinese stock market in a minute, but I will tell you that I do own shares in China, and will probably, and I'm looking for more shares in China as we go forward. I told you before, China is going to be the great country of this century. Someday I hope that my children say, Well, he must have been smart. Look at all these Chinese shares we have. You know, if you'd sold your American shares 100 years ago, you would have looked smart for a while, but 80 years later, you would have looked pretty foolish. That's the way my view of China. The century is going to be good for China. Yes, there will be setbacks along the way. Everybody has setbacks as they rise, whether it's a family or an individual or a company or a country. The United States was the most successful country in the 20th century, but we had horrible problems along the way, including many depressions, many problems in the U.S. So don't worry, you will have problems too going forward, but there's a wonderful Mandarin word, wei ji. We don't have the word in English, but wei ji means catastrophe and opportunity, the same thing. By the way, the Koreans and the Japanese have the same word, the same character. They got it from the Chinese. But all of you have been around a lot longer than we have been in the West, so you know that opportunity and disaster go hand in hand. So when you see problems in China, don't worry. And one of the main reasons that you should not worry about the future is that the One Belt, One Road project, which China has initiated. It's not often in world history that geography changes. 500 years ago, the Spanish and the Portuguese started sailing around the world and changed geography. The railroad came along and changed geography a couple of hundred years ago. You've heard of San Francisco in the United States. San Francisco is a major city, but it's there because of the railroad. It would not exist if the railroad hadn't come along and made it a great city. So geography doesn't change often, but the most important project in the 21st century, at least so far, is the One Belt, One Road project, which China has initiated. In my view, it is genius. It will help bring together Asia and Europe. Many people are going to make huge amounts of money from the One Belt, One Road. It's not a secret. Get out a map. You can see where it's going to go, and you will see that the places where the railroad will be prosperous. Other places will be left behind. But don't worry about it, because there's going to be enough prosperity for everybody going forward. If you want to read more about prosperity, there's a book. You can read the book and you will find out more about it. So let's focus a little more on China now. You know, China has been the most successful country in the last 40 years, bar none. Been a great 40 years for China, and it continues to be a great future for China. Yes, I want to repeat, there will be some setbacks along the way, but again, I'm sure I pronounced it wrong, but remember wei ji. We've recently had a big collapse in the world economy because of the virus, but that is also an opportunity, not just in China, but all over the world. Because when things collapse, somebody is going to benefit. And in the last few years, the Chinese, Beijing, has made some big changes in your economy. They cut back on some of the lending that was taking place, and in my view, that is fabulous. It was something that was definitely needed in China. They changed education. In my view, that's very good. You know, I live in a country where if you have the money, you can hire tutors, but that's not quite fair to the other people, if you ask me. So China's changing the education system, which in my view is very, very good. Property in China has been in a bit of a bubble. Well, Beijing doesn't like it. I don't like it. I'm sure most people don't like it. So they're cutting back on the property bubble, which will make things better for all of China going forward, because whenever you have a big bubble that collapses, a lot of people lose a lot of money. So be sure to take advantage of all the changes that are taking place. Don't worry about them. My way of investing, whenever I see a disaster, I have learned, just like the Chinese have learned, to look for the opportunities. You also can find opportunities whenever there's a major government change. When a government changes something, they spend a lot of money and a lot of effort. Well, so somebody's going to make a lot of money. It might as well be you who makes a lot of money. Just see what governments do. One Belt, One Road, to mention that again, or some of the changes in property or education or other things that are happening in China lead to opportunities. And also, whenever there's major new change that comes along, it leads to great opportunities. Well, look out the window. You see some of the great changes. China's a major leader in solar energy. You're way ahead of most other countries in the world. Well, figure out who's good at it. You know, you can see some of the changes that are taking place in the world, and then that will lead to opportunities. I'm not very good at technology, but a lot of Chinese are good at technology. So find the ones who are good at it and go with them and make a fortune. The world is always changing, and you are leaders in China are leaders in many technologies. Electric vehicles, you're one of the great leaders of electric vehicles. Environmental cleanup, you're cleaning, you know, Beijing has decided they're going to clean up China. Well, somebody's going to make a lot of money cleaning up China. Figure out who's good at it, at cleaning up China and cleaning up the world, by the way. Figure out who's good at it, and you will make a lot of money. Agriculture. I'm very optimistic on agriculture. Well, Beijing has decided that they're going to help the countryside. Beijing has said, well, you know, in the last 40 years, many people in the cities have done well. Look out the window, you'll see many people in the cities have done well. But they've also decided that we're now going to help the countryside because they haven't done as well. So if you don't like living in Beijing or Shanghai, go back to the countryside. Beijing will do what they can to help you become a farmer or open shops or whatever it is. But there are going to be many, many great opportunities in the countryside going forward. And of course, I certainly need to mention the Greater Bay project that Beijing has initiated or is helping with. You know, you look at America, for instance, we have the Greater Bay, the San Francisco Bay Area, Palo Alto, other cities. That's been a major prosperous region. China is now doing the same thing with your Greater Bay. And you've got more people, and there will probably be many, many more opportunities as China develops its own Greater Bay. There are many opportunities in China and in the world. I've explained how you find some of them whenever you see a new change. I've told you 3 ways that I look for places to invest or find things to invest. So back to property, for instance, which is a disaster in some parts of the world right now, and Beijing is trying to make it change. Look for who's going to benefit. Some people are going to suffer badly, but some people are going to benefit very, very well. Likewise with the virus. It's damaged transportation, tourism, entertainment, restaurants, hotels. Many parts of the world economy have been damaged and suffering. Well, look at some of them. I mean, airlines are going to survive. I own Chinese airline stocks, for instance, because I know we're not going to take the boat to London in the future. We're not going to take the boat to Brazil in the future. We're going to fly to these various countries. So try to figure out who's going to benefit or who's not going to suffer too much from the disasters taking place. I mentioned technology before. You know, I don't know much about technology, but I do. My wife, for instance, loves the meta-universe. Don't ask me, but if you know what you're doing, then maybe you will find some great opportunities in the technological changes that are taking place in the world as well. So I hope that I urge all of you to look for opportunities in China. The Chinese continue to change, develop dramatically. I mentioned One Belt, One Road. I mentioned some of the technological changes that are taking place. You know, watch TMT Post and find out what's going on. I'm delighted that they have come up with this conference. I hope there will be more conferences like this in the world after the epidemic. Certainly that we all need to talk and meet more together. So I urge TMT Post to have more conferences like this, bring people together. We can exchange ideas. We can find out we're not dangerous to each other. And I hope that it will help Chinese investors as well as international investors so that we all can have more prosperity going forward. I think on that happy note, we should stop, and I will take questions about anything you want to ask.